Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Careers Podcast. In today's episode, we're diving into the world of business growth strategy and what it actually takes to scale a business when the wheels start falling off between your sales and marketing team. My guest today, Michelle Michaux, founder of Square M Solutions, has spent more than 20 years inside the biggest organizations on the planet until she walked away from it all to help smaller businesses tighten their messaging and hit their business goals with clever strategic positioning. Without further ado, Michelle, how are you today? Thank you for joining me.
Great. Thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here.
I'm excited to have this chat, actually. In our preliminary chat, one of the things that was really evident and interesting about you was your blend of skills that you've had throughout your journey in the corporate world. So you did sales, you did marketing, you did product dev, you did management of people. All of those things together kind of make you a powerhouse. And we also discussed that they are a rare combo.
Yeah.
Before you got into all of this and did 20 years of experience throughout the corporate world, where did it all begin for you?
Okay. So it all began straight out of school. I went to start a science degree. And really, in retrospect, I would have been a terrible scientist because I live life by the 80-20. I'm not accurate enough. But during my summer break, I went and worked at the Reserve Bank. And I just loved the freedom of working and earning money. And, I just decided I was going to stay there, and I started working for the Reserve Bank.
Mhm.
That journey took me through a career of 15 years in banking, where I worked for some of the largest banks in the world. So, until I started my own business, the smallest company I'd worked for had 15,000 employees.
That's
So I
wild.
started in banking, got through, lots of different functions within banking. And then I realized that I wasn't really going to be able to own the customer because banking in the 80s and 90s was particularly male dominated, and it was very difficult to progress. So I went somewhere where I could own the customer. And I went to Telstra. So I worked for them when, they had 40,000 employees and were, it was the start of privatisation. We'd been through T1 and T2. We hadn't actually fully privatised.
Right.
And so I worked through Telstra for a long time. Then I had a career break when I had children. And then I went back into working at Fujitsu. So Fujitsu is a global company. They're a big Japanese company, and Japanese companies are usually conglomerates. In Japan, Fujitsu does everything from making agricultural technology to building submarines and bullet trains to making supercomputers and everything in between, as well as air conditioners that everyone knows them for out here.
I was just about to say, why do I only know air conditioners?
Correct. And, and so I worked for the IT services part of the Fujitsu business, which in Australia was about $1 billion of revenue. And globally, they have 155,000 employees. So it's a giant company, much bigger than anybody really realizes out here. Then from there, I went to ComputerShare, which, is an Australian company listed on the ASX. Reality is like the vast majority of their business is now in the UK and the US, and the CEO is actually located in the UK now. And I was the global head of marketing for one of their divisions. And on that journey, I've started in operations when I worked at the Reserve Bank. And then I went through to customer service and sales in the banking environment. I went through to sales management in tech. Then I went into customer experience, product marketing, customer satisfaction programs, and then global head of marketing for a division of ComputerShare. Quite a meandering journey.
It's huge, actually. One question that is a little bit of a side question. I wanted to ask this because you say Reserve Bank, but you also worked at Citibank too. Can I just ask the question? The Reserve Bank's not an actual bank, is it?
Well, it's the bank for the country. So it's the government's bank. And it's the bank that holds all of the reserves for our country. So it's actually a government entity. You can't go and hold an account with the Reserve Bank.
Yes,
but
okay.
The ATO has an account with the Reserve Bank.
Okay. Now that puts it in perspective. And so there you started with operations, and then that would have been the introduction to the financial world. Then Citibank, was that after that?
So I went from the Reserve Bank to Chase Manhattan Bank.
Right.
Or it was Chase AMP. In the day, it was a joint venture between Chase Manhattan and AMP.
Yep.
So Chase AMP, and then I went to Citibank. Then I went to Telstra, Fujitsu, ComputerShare.
All right. And so throughout that whole corporate journey, you would have seen so many different things. And the bigger the business gets as well, like the more people you get, the more amplified each problem gets. But what are some of the typical structural issues that you noticed particularly among all of these companies that you really were able to help with?
I think from my perspective, every problem has to start with the customer. And sometimes the structural problems inside the business, when you look at them as structural, it's really hard to see an answer. But when you look at it from the customer journey or the customer experience, or what are you actually trying to do for the customer, that's when you start to see the answers. So when you think about, I mean, just even in my own small business today, I don't want to engage with a business that won't let me talk to 5 customers and find out how they're actually behaving, how the business is relating to them and how they feel when they're buying a service. That stuff's so important. And without having that voice of customer, you really can't develop your problems and processes to actually meet their need. At the end of the day, every business is trying to sell a product or a service, and it's meeting that customer need and understanding what that customer need is. That's at the heart of every structural process that's behind it. Your processes have to drive efficiency and costs and profitability, but if they're not meeting the customer need, they're either wasted processes, broken processes, or they're not serving your business.
Or the customer, which is the main...
Or the customer, right?
Yeah. Right. So, and I guess these issues, they don't affect just large businesses that you've been working in, but they're just there on a bigger scale. So
that's right.
Why do you think it is that founders or upper management or boards overlook, or these issues go undetected with them, like in the most common sense, I guess?
So sometimes it's as simple as when a founder starts a business, a lot of the information's in their head. They know their customer intimately because they're solving a very specific problem when they begin their business.
Yep.
And then as their business grows and scales, obviously you start off with one product and then you might branch out to 2 or 3, or you might, add on new services. Things start to get more complicated. Profile of your customer might start to slightly change, or literally just the founder grows the business and steps away. So steps up to grow the business and puts in a head of sales or a head of marketing or head of product. In that step up, they often just something's lost in translation. It's not quite articulated clearly enough, or it's just something that sometimes when you reflect on yourself and your own skill set, something that you find extremely obvious and easy is just an innate ability that you have and it's your weapon, but actually other people don't get it as innately as you do. And so sometimes it's that people don't articulate what they find obvious because they assume everybody finds it obvious. And so it's in just getting into that articulation process that you find those loose connections that need to be tightened up. So, for example, if that founder has stepped up and hasn't explicitly enough represented the ideal customer profile to the head of sales and the head of marketing, then marketing might be putting out, developing leads that are for just a slight tweak of the customer profile that's a little bit step to the left. And then when sales tries to close them, they can't close them because the customer profile just wasn't quite right. So then founders look at that and go, well, why haven't I got growth? And it's not really sales' fault. It's not really marketing's fault because marketing's generating the leads and sales can't close them. And is it, you just end up in this finger pointing exercise of what's the real problem.
It'd almost be like sitting in a circle playing Chinese whispers, and then obviously the vision changed somewhere along the way, but who in the circle screwed it up and trying to figure it out?
Nobody knows. And it's nobody's fault. It's really just that when you're inside it, you can't see it. And it comes down to KPIs and all sorts of other things. If sales is paid on closed deals and marketing's paid on leads, well, are you measuring the same thing? Have they got shared goals that make them both strive towards the same thing? When the goals aren't aligned, then they're not going to communicate well. If the customer profile isn't clear enough, or sometimes even say, you've got a software lifecycle journey and a sales rep's been brought in to sell it. And if that person sees a demo of the software when they come in and learn the selling process and they see this amazing feature and they start selling that to their customers, but actually that feature is better in year 2. The customers have to go through a certain process in year 1 before they add that feature. But if they're talking about it, selling it, and then the customers come on board year 1 and they try to implement it in their business year 1 and it's not working, then all of a sudden the customer's really dissatisfied. They churn at the end of year 1. And churn is especially in tech and software businesses, churn is a major cost because the cost of acquiring a customer is often up to 7 times the cost of keeping an existing one or upselling to an
Yeah.
existing one. So just that little tweak in the sales playbook could have made a big difference to them.
Yeah. What I'm getting from this whole takeaway from this is, so there's two things. There's continuing to keep up with the market and how they might be changing with their needs. And then also
Yes.
how well is the team or the people you have in place communicating? And that obviously goes from top down. How well did the founder
Yeah.
communicate their vision? And
Yep.
how well did everyone hear it and pass it on?
And how well is that then documented so that then when somebody goes on holidays or somebody, leaves and a new person's employed, is that documented clearly enough to be
Do
able
you
to
know
keep
what?
passing on?
I just have this just because of my boss as well. I've seen this play out before. It's like the boss is usually the visionary and creative, and
Yes.
they don't want to know about the documents. So that's even
Yes.
more complex because sure, they've got all of this great stuff in their brain, but then documenting it's very hard to get that out of a visionary sometimes. So because it's not
Yes, it is.
interesting.
It is very hard, like for me to come in as a consultant and
Mhm.
understand enough of what they're saying to then create that linkage and a document that lets them tell me the bare minimum, but me to
Mm.
create enough detail in there. And I do that, through really understanding the customers and their perspective, understanding the team and their perspective. It's not just the founder who's required to give you that information.
Yes.
You can take what pieces you can from them and work with what you've got and then gather all this other evidence around because there's so many signal points in a business.
Mm.
You look at the CRM, you look at the pipeline, you look at, talk to people, talk to the customer, and you're putting together all these clues to get to the final piece.
Through that
Mm.
your whole journey as well, and all of the pillars that you've worked in, what's the funnest part of all of it? Like if you were to look back at it and all and go, where would I love to be in this whole thing?
For me, it's always strategy. Like I love
Okay.
the big picture. I love the complex problem. I love solving it.
Mm-hmm.
But I also love the customer side. So I love seeing a satisfied customer. So when I was in sales, I always say I'm an atypical salesperson because I'm not coin operated. I'm
Okay.
satisfaction operated, right? So when I solve a customer's problem and I can show a return on investment and I can show them, the metrics of the outcome for them,
Yeah,
that brings me great joy.
I love that. Well, that makes so much sense. What we're about to get into with your actual
Yeah.
journey now. So, okay.
Yeah.
So what was the catalyst for going out of the corporate world and into the Square M Solutions? Tell me about this.
So for me, I was just ticking along in corporate and I was made redundant in 2023. And that wasn't entirely a surprise, but I just went, it was December 2023. And I thought, oh, you know what? I'll just find another job. And when I started looking around, the market was very quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And especially at senior levels, it was very quiet. And the role for, especially marketing, there was a flooded market for senior marketing executives. And after a few months, the more time I spent out of that corporate political environment, the more I just went, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore.
Mm.
And I kind of spent some time reflecting on what did I want to do. And I had been helping my brother in his business and he's a solo tradesperson. I'd helped him with his business and I'm happy to share what I did there. But I kind of reflected on that and went, you know what, I really get a lot of joy out of helping those businesses. And let me just take this 20, 30 years of corporate experience. I've experienced business at scale. Let
Mm-hmm.
me help take that information and help other people to enjoy theirs, to improve their quality of life, to improve their ability to serve their customers. Let me just take that and share it with other people.
And I guess the bigger companies too, they've got all of these really skilled individuals like yourself as well, working at them, constantly trying to grow that business. But
Yep.
all of those insider knowledge pieces aren't really, well, they are really, you can go on the internet and find them everywhere, but they're not really curated in a way.
Yeah, no. So for me, I kind of looked at myself and went, my unicorn ability is that I've owned everything from product, essentially just the product out of the product house, right through to strategy at some point in my career journey. So I can put together the puzzle of that part of a business in a way that most people can't, because most people have either been head of sales or they've been a head of marketing. And, to be able to put together all those pieces and to be able to do the pattern recognition that solves it quickly and at scale, that's unusual. It's not a common journey. I'm obviously not the only person in the world who's done it, but it's not common. Most people either stay in a sales tower, stay in a marketing tower, and in a marketing tower they might do product marketing, or they might do growth marketing, or they might do different things. Whereas I've just had this breadth of experience that's rare.
I love it.
And breadth
And then,
across different industries, right? Like I've always been B2B and
yep.
usually top end of town B2B, but breadth across industries. I've worked in financial services, telco, IT, fintech, mail house. I've worked in lots of different ways across different industries.
So going back to the story of your brother as well, I thought this was really
Yeah,
cool because how you helped him like take something that he already does and just simply tweak it a little bit and build the
yeah,
business around that. That's what I thought was really cool.
yeah.
So can we revisit that
So
actually?
what happened with my brother, like he was 49, he had a personal crisis. He walked away from, a 30-year marriage with nothing other than debt and a car full of
Man.
tools. He's a tiler. And he just said to me, I don't know what I'm going to do because I've got to start again and my body hurts and I just don't know what to do. So we sat down and we talked about his business and the bits of it that he likes the most and what was making his body hurt the most. And, the reality was that just doing straight tiling jobs, he'd been subbing to other builders. And so he was just tiling like whole houses, patios, bathrooms, like he was just tiling. And the carding of the tiles was what was really killing him.
Mm.
And so we talked about it and we figured that if he became a bathroom renovation company, he could, one, work in a more confined space. So he wasn't carting tiles all over a building site. He was just doing it in one bathroom and then another bathroom. And the other thing was that we could set him up so that he was working with other partners. So he was working with a carpenter who had a labourer, he's working with a sparky and a plumber. And it meant that he's shifting the workload around a little bit. So we set him up as a bathroom renovation company. He built those relationships, or he had some people that he could call on. He built those relationships. And now he works, probably 50% of the time he's doing demo with the carpenter and carpenter's labourer. So that's a bit easier on his body. Then the next week he's tiling, but in a confined space. He increased his top line by 3 times. So we tripled his top line in 18 months and
That's
we
amazing.
increased his bottom line by 30% in the same time. So we made him more profitable, but we made him in a business that he loves. And again, he's like a hobby photographer on the side. He's quite creative and he's design oriented. So he loves the idea of coming in and helping the customer design their bathroom. We've set up some really good customer service processes, for him to deliver a premium product,
Hmm.
but at the right level of the market. I had to help him understand who his target market was. Is your target market like me and my girlfriends who are sort of living in medium, like, upper middle class kind of households, or are you targeting, people in wealthy suburbs? And, we talked through when you've worked on jobs with those people in the wealthier suburbs, what does that look like and how does that feel? He's like, oh no, I don't want to work there. I don't want to do that. I've done some really fancy pools and I don't like it.
Yeah.
So, we found the niche where he felt comfortable. And it's not in my market. He lives in Canberra. I live in Melbourne. So I didn't know the suburbs in Canberra. I couldn't say the names of the suburbs to make them register with him, but I could walk through that process with him of what does your customer look like and how would they feel after your renovation? And we could then design all of his branding and packaging and everything else to meet those needs of that customer.
It's so cool. And I bet that obviously helping your brother is one thing, but then also
Yeah,
seeing him package that together and increasing his top line, I bet you any money that hit your customer satisfaction button. Yeah?
absolutely. I absolutely love it. It makes me proud every time I tell the story.
Yeah.
And I know he loves it. And
Hmm.
he had no system of measuring profitability.
Hmm.
We put in a system. I found some software for him to use to better manage his job processes. Lots of operational, functional things in there, as well as just targeting, customer targeting and messaging and repositioning who he was. At the end of the 18 months, or like after about 2 years, I said to him, so over the last time we've worked together, what's the one lesson that I taught you that meant the most to you? What's the one thing that you learnt from me? And he thought about it for a while and he said, you know what? You made me feel like a business owner, not a tradie.
I love that.
I know. Like that
And
really hit me in all the feels, that one.
yeah,
Um,
100%. And there's a lot to say about collaboration too. So, repositioning, I'm sure that would have
yeah,
done something better for his social health as well. Being able to get in and do demolition with people and work together and be creative, complete transformation.
absolutely. And even just that idea that he started thinking like a business owner, he joined a group where a group of male business owners go out for dinner once a month and they, talk business, talk shop, also experience a nice dinner and a glass of wine and whatever else. But he has this now mindset of I'm a business owner
Yeah.
instead of I'm a tradie.
Does he
And
want to be
and he's
interviewed as
now
well? He sounds like a good
I'm sure
candidate.
I can ask him. I'm sure he might. Yeah, and look, I've got a lot of other stories like that, honestly, Tom.
Yeah.
I've had a customer, a girl that I met in a networking group. We were at a meeting the other week and she stood up and she said, does anybody know anyone who has a lot of experience with MailChimp? Because I've inherited a new customer and
MailChimp, did you say?
yeah,
Okay.
MailChimp.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Sorry.
And she said, I've inherited a new customer. And I thought they would have like 2,000 or 3,000 records in their MailChimp, and they've got 50,000. After the meeting, I just said to her, look, I'm really happy to help you. I'm not a MailChimp expert, but I have used it and seen
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
But I said, I'm used to dealing with big numbers. So let's have a look at it. And, there's a lot of risk involved in taking over, a service like that and understanding how to manage all your unsubscribes. There's a lot of legal requirements around mail, contacts and data and privacy and everything.
Mm.
So it's a lot of risk when you start mucking around in these systems. And she was just overwhelmed because she'd never seen anything that big. And I just could sit down, have a look at it. It took me probably half an hour of looking at it. And I went, okay, I think I know what's happened here. Export that data. We're going to get an AI to actually do this to the data and we'll come back with a confirmation. And it turned out there was actually only 7,000 unique records in that 50,000 record database.
Beautiful.
And we could
Cortisol level down.
So, yeah, right, exactly. So we could then go back to her customer and say, there's actually only 7,000 records in here. We can save you $500 a month on your subscription to MailChimp
Mm-hmm.
because we can strip out a bunch of those records. But now the next step is getting a whole new list from their client management system to then compare to that 7,000 and find out how many of their current customers are actually in that 7,000 and
Mm.
can we take it down even further to a more manageable size? And then we have to manage the process of getting that data back into MailChimp in a usable way with the right tags and the right processes, but also managing the unsubscribes risk and the privacy risks at the same time. It's just something that she didn't feel comfortable being able to even tackle on her own, but I could spot that pattern recognition straight away because I had that.
And the overwhelm of that too. It's enough
Yes.
to keep you paralyzed, burning
Yeah.
cash, not knowing how to solve the problem when, maybe 5,000 records is all you actually needed, but hell, like
Yeah.
how is she going to figure it out?
Yeah.
And so that's awesome that you were able to help with that as
Yeah.
well. What else have we got?
Oh, look. So again, in the business networking group, I met a bookkeeper and we decided to catch up because, often bookkeepers can spot problems that I can come in and solve.
Mm-hmm.
So I was having coffee with her and we were meant to actually physically meet in a cafe and have lunch. And she messaged me. She said, hey, I've got some family problems. Can we just meet online? So we met online and I could just tell her stress levels were like through the roof.
Mm-hmm.
And she'd had a couple of personal issues that day with her family. And we talked about them and I'd had very similar issues with my children who are now adults and hers
Mm-hmm.
are not adults. And we sort of talked about, the things that I've done to tackle that, which was great. And I was really happy to share. And then she said, "Oh, and I've got this other problem with my customers." And she talked to me about how, she had some older customers who've been with her for a very long time, but they're becoming very high maintenance. And we just talked through the issues that are around hanging on to those customers for loyalty. And when you're a very small business,
Mm.
she has 2 employees, like she's a very small business. It's hard sometimes to step back and look in. And I just talked to her about, what's the value you're getting from them? What else could you be doing with your time? Are there other things that you could be could bring you better revenue than the revenue that's coming from those customers? And 2 weeks later, she sent me, well, no, it wasn't 2 weeks. It was probably about 4 weeks later. She sent me an email and she just said, I cannot thank you enough for the clarity you gave me that day because I've let go of those clients. It was really hard. Some of them were really upset with me, but it's freed my mental space to actually focus on new business. And I've got some new business coming in as a result of it. That's amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it's that outside in thinking that can come from bringing someone to your business. It can be invaluable. I know consultants have a really bad name sometimes for coming in and dropping a 100-page strategy deck and then going, cheers, see you later.
Mm.
But it's that pragmatic practicality of someone looking from the outside in and being able to just have that fresh pair of eyes that gives you just a completely different perspective. And someone who's, I often say, I've seen business at scale, and that allows me to recognize patterns really quickly and allows me to really grapple, complex processes in a way that sometimes when you're deep in the weeds of it, you can't get yourself untangled. And I see it in my own business. Like I can't get myself untangled sometimes because when you're thinking about your own business, it's finance, emotion, process, strategy, all tangled up together. And it's sometimes hard to step back. And I need to bounce with other people too, as much as I do it for my customers.
Of course. The human condition.
Absolutely.
There's 2 package options that you have at the moment. Can we talk about how
Yes.
all this experience, how has that come together as the packages you're offering?
So for me, I sort of have a small business package where I do small business coaching and I just offer that growth service as a coaching service where people can just tackle a problem. Sometimes I do things like, we'll just have 1 month to focus on one problem and do a deep dive into one issue in their business just to let them focus on something small and be affordable for their business, because I'm just conscious that small businesses can't afford big money. So something that's small, affordable, compact, that they can just get a deep dive on one problem, focus on a solution for 1 month, and then hopefully that gives them a little bit of a kickstart. And then I have another offer for mid-market. So founders and CEOs who, at that point of they've put in a head of sales or they're about to put in a head of sales where they're thinking, actually, I'm going to need to transfer information, or I've put in a head of sales and my growth started to slow down. What am I going to do about it? And I can come in and just, pull that string tight and get everything humming again for them, get some of that information out of their head and allow them to just sort of, move on with the growth that they're chasing without having to worry about that. And I can offer it as an audit process where I just give them, a report that's got a practical and pragmatic approach to it. Like everything I do is pragmatic and it always has, here's your 3 steps to get to the next level. And then if they feel like they need help to implement it, then I can stay on a fractional basis to, just work a few hours, a day or 2 a week to help them build that process out or to help them with recruitment or the different steps that they need to take.
Yeah, I love that. So with the process of getting started with you, do people usually do like a discovery call and then you sort of get them to present the issue that they've got?
Yeah. So usually it starts with a discovery call. I go through some questions with them to really understand about their business, about the problems they're having now, the problems that they think they're having, and sometimes we uncover problems that they don't realize they've got.
Yep.
And then from that discovery call, then if they want to go ahead with the audit, then I come in. I allow 4 weeks to do it because I really do interview customers, right? I don't want to do this unless I can speak to the customer, speak to staff and speak to the founder and or the CEO, depending on the structure of the business. But yeah, so I allow 4 weeks just so that we've got plenty of time to recruit customers and for me to write a good, clear report at the end. Sometimes that timeline can be shortened significantly depending on how long it takes to get hold of the customers. And I do the audit, I write them their report, I walk them through that, make sure that they're clear on the outcomes and that they're happy with the outcomes. And then we go on to the next stage of either they take that away and implement it or I help them through the process.
What I feel compelled to say as well is that satisfaction focus that you have.
Absolutely.
Well, I feel like in comparison to somebody that does just walk in with an audit report, throw it on the desk and walk away, that satisfaction one being the key driver
Yeah.
rather than the coin, I feel like
Yes.
it's something that would make you pop because you care about that person getting a result. And that's what people need to feel in order to feel trusting. Yeah.
And some people may argue, if you speak to a consultant, they may argue that that doesn't make me a good consultant because the consultant has to be able to deliver and walk away and focus on the next job. Whereas I actually think it makes me a better consultant because I
Yeah.
actually want them to succeed.
I bet it does. Well, it would feel better for the customer as well,
Yes.
which will only, pay you back tenfold.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I love that. Okay, if you were to tell somebody to go and have a look at you online, where's the best place to direct someone?
They could go to my website, which is squarem.com.au. So yes, that would be the best place to start. Or they can look me up on LinkedIn. I have a lot of content published on LinkedIn.
All right, I'll make sure that those links are in the show notes. And is there anything else about the Square M that you'd love to put out there?
I just love talking to people about business. So even if they want to just book in for the discovery call and have a chat, I'd be super happy because I just love talking about business.
Yep.
And I think it's rubbed off on my children.
Yeah.
My eldest,
that's good.
My eldest works for JB Hi-Fi, and at 18 or 19 years old, when they acquired E&S Trading here in Melbourne,
yeah,
she came home and discussed with me for 2 hours what that might mean for the share price, the strategy, the warehouse consolidation. Like me talking about business has just rubbed off on my kids.
Wait, that is so good though, because like they're gonna go out into the workplace and you're there just cheering them on, and you're gonna give them all of those skills. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Good on them. All right, cool. Well, thank you so much for this chat today. It's been really great. I've really enjoyed it, and yeah, I'll leave everything in the show notes, and you have a lovely day.
Thank you, Tom. I've loved it. I really appreciate it.
Bye.
See ya.